Hello anybody, and thanks for tuning in to Monday Morning Handicapping. This is a Pedigree playlist, a playlist that I started to help myself as well as any viewers out there just understand some of these newer stallions on the scene and where their progeny or their offspring like to excel on the racetrack. And the horse that I'm going to be taking a look at today is a horse named Mitole. A few items on the agenda and some caveats. I'm currently selecting top sires of 2023 and 2024. This is for the sake of recency because less is known about these stallions and I want to get to know them a little bit before more of the public does. Not only educate myself, but also hope to find some horses, buy some of these stallions that maybe the public doesn't know as much on, and maybe try to catch them at a decent price once in a while. So I'm looking at some of the more recent stallions where there's a bit more question marks surrounding them. We're going to review Mitole's racing career, his distances and surfaces he liked to run on, as well as some major wins. What caliber of horse was he? Then we're going to review my Google Sheets document, which documents the top 50 earners by Mitole. This file will be in the description below this video, but I also wanted to look at the top 50 of each of these stallions by earnings, since these runners showcase what their offspring's peak potential may look like. We're also going to review Mitole's stud career, the first win, the age that they won at, the distance they won at, the surfaces they won at, and the progressions. So where they started, where they got their first wins, and where they've gotten their most recent wins. And then we're going to go over all the numbers that I showcase in the Google Sheets document, which again is provided in the description below, and then wrap it up with some key takeaways. So why is all this relevant? Well, this is relevant because these metrics are used by owners before spending thousands and sometimes millions of dollars before buying a horse to race and or eventually breed. My aim for this playlist is to provide some useful information when handicapping races for 2-year-olds that have few, if any, races in their career. When this is the case, individual proclivities on the racetrack can be partially determined by the pedigree. I hope these videos also help bring attention to the abilities of these horses as more distance and surface options are available as they progress through their career, so that the player can capitalize on a horse that might excel when trying something new. So taking a look at Mitole's racing career, first off, his sire or father was a horse named Escandarea. His dam or mother was a horse named Indian Miss, and the dam sire or the father of his mother is a horse named Indian Charlie. Mitole was born in 2015 and he raced from 2017 through 2019. He was purchased at auction in 2017 for $140,000. Mitole had 14 career starts, 10 wins, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and earned $3.1 million in his career, including 4 grade 1 victories. And grade 1 races are the highest level of racing offered. They're the most talented riders, most talented horses, most talented trainers. It's just the cream of the crop racing. Mitole has grade 1 wins at distances of 6, 7, and 8 furlongs. And remember, a furlong is 1/8 of a mile, so this is 3/4 of a mile, 7/8 of a mile, and 1 mile races he has grade 1 wins at. 7 of his 10 wins were at 6 furlongs, so 3/4 of a mile. Though Mitole in general was a 1-turn specialist, some of his 8 furlong 1 mile races were just around 1 turn. Some tracks allow that. Mitole was an Eclipse Award winner for Champion Male Sprinter, as well as Horse of the Year finalist in 2019. Mitole's sire was a grade 1 and grade 2 winner routing, so going a distance of a mile or greater. His dam or mother raced only 2 times, and her best finish was 3rd place. His dam sire was a grade 1 winner and 3rd place finisher in the 1998 Kentucky Derby. So a grade 1 winner on his sire and dam sire's side. So this horse, for all intents and purposes, is pretty well bred. Mitole's stud career, so out in the breeding shed, he demands a $15,000 stud fee, and he's currently standing at Spendthrift Farm in Kentucky. Mitole has covered an average of 198 mares throughout his first 5 years at stud. In 2024, some of the sales for his offspring were up to $725,000. Some of the auctions in 2023 were up to $400,000, and in 2022, at the sales, they sold for up to $550,000. So his offspring is commanding quite the pretty penny, as you can see. And now I want to show everybody that Google Sheets document that again is provided in the description below, just so everyone knows what I'm looking at and what I'll be talking about. So here's a look at the Google Sheets document. These are all of Mitole's progeny by earnings. So the offspring that has the most earnings by Mitole is a horse named Booth currently, and the 50th highest earner is a horse named Mitole's Girl. So So on the left-hand column, we have the names of the horses here. We have their individual records. So Booth has 12 career starts, 7 wins, no seconds or thirds. And this entire section here, you can see first career win. So in what start did this horse get their first career win? Booth won on debut, so first ever start, won the race. He was at the age of 2 in the 10th month, so October, going a distance of 6 furlongs on the dirt at Keeneland. And just to get a sense of the progression, how these horses are developing and where the trainers think they're best suited, horses by Mitole that is, we look at their most recent win. So again, Booth has had 12 career starts, 1 on debut, but his most recent win was in his 11th start at the age of 4 in the 5th month, so May, going a distance again of 6 furlongs on the dirt at Pimlico. And the dam sire, so the father of the mother of Booth, was a horse named Bellamy Road. And Bellamy Road is actually a dam sire that had another first out winner. I believe it was by Vacoma. So look for Bellamy Road on the dam sire in the racing form, and we'll get to that in a minute. But Bellamy Road seems to be quite a productive dam sire. Off to the right, I just have some notes that I noticed when going through this. Bellamy Road, again, another first-time starter. Down here, Street Sense, router with age. I've just noticed the dam sire being Street Sense. They seem to like going a route of ground. So just a couple of notes of things that I've noticed. And I've done the same for all of the top 50 earners by Mitole. Down below, we have some averages, and we're going to go over some of these in the later slides, but they're down here for your viewing if you so wish. And for anyone that might not know where to see the pedigree in the racing form, if you look up here, this horse named Carbone, who I believe is actually on the list that we were just looking at, here's where you can find the sire of each horse. See sire Mitole here. Here's the sire of Mitole, Escandarea. You see the dam here, so the mother of Carbone is a horse named Treasure in Heaven, but the dam sire, so the father of the mother, is a horse named Street Sense. And as you can see, this horse has only had 5 career starts, so this is where this playlist, I hope, comes into play. Maybe when a horse only has 1, 2, or 3 starts, you might wonder, in this horse's second start, after sprinting 1 turn at 6 furlong, how likely is it that a Mitole horse can stretch out to a mile going around 2 turns? Well, this horse won very convincingly and was the betting favorite, but I just hope that these videos will give you a better sense of when a Mitole sired horse is making this change, is he likely to excel at this change, whether it be a new distance or a new surface. But ultimately, this is where you're going to see the pedigree lines in the racing form if you did not know already. Now let's get back to the slides. So Mitole progeny, looking at their first ever win. The idea of looking at where Mitole progeny get their first win to examine the precocity of their offspring, that is to determine their mental and physical abilities at an early age. So 48 of the 50 top earners have at least 1 win. 13 of the top 50 earners, 26%, won their debut race, which is their first time ever racing. So I'm just measuring how precocious some of their offspring is, 26%. We'll compare that with some of the other horses that I've covered for now, but just know 26% of his top 50 earners are winning their first ever race. Average starts before their first win for all 50 runners, it took about 3.1 starts for each of those horses to get their first wins. On the more precocious side, the horses that get off to a fast start, if they were 2 years old, it took about 2.1 starts and they got their first win around mid-September. But remember, 2-year-old races begin in late spring or early summer, so their racing season gets off to a later start. So to get your first win in mid-September is pretty early in the 2-year-old season. For the horses that are a little slower to start, that got their wins at 3 years old, it took about 4.2 starts on average to get their first win, and they typically got that first win around mid-April. So if you see a Mitole sired horse that's taken a little bit longer to get their first win, somewhere around their 4th start, around mid-April, they might be mature enough physically and mentally to overcome and get that first win. The average distance of their first wins, no matter how many starts it took them for all runners, the average distance was 6.4 furlongs. Again, if this was a little bit of a precocious horse, the average distance was 6.2 furlongs. And remember, route races for 2-year-olds begin in the fall or winter. So if they're getting their first win around mid-September, route races aren't necessarily too available to them at this moment, so you would expect this to be a sprint race, but 6.2 furlongs was the average distance for 2-year-olds getting their first wins. For the slower starters getting their first win at 3 years old, the average distance was 6.8 furlongs, so on the longer side of a sprint race. The percentage of their first wins being sprint races was 81%, which again you would expect because more sprint races are available to those younger horses. And the percentage of their first wins being route races was 19% overall. The first win surface, 85% of Mitole runners got their first win on dirt, 13% got their first win on turf or grass, and in the US, races on turf make up only between 10 to 20% of all races, so you would not expect turf to be a very high number, but we can compare this with the other stallions that I've covered before, and we'll do that. So by comparison, we can see how well or how much they're excelling on the turf compared to other stallions. And on a synthetic or all-weather surface, 2% of his top 50 earners got their first wins on the synthetic. Now looking at Mitole progeny, their latest win, sort of their progression, where they started and where they're headed towards, based on how the horse is performing and what their trainer thinks is best for the horse. The idea of examining Mitole's progeny's latest win is to compare where they started compared to where they are headed in terms of success at differing distances and surfaces. There are less options for younger horses, and those options expand as they get older. So examining where they are having success as they get older can indicate to us what scenarios Mitole's progeny may have success trying a new distance or surface for the first time. When horses trying something new for the first time, this can lead to the betting public to have questions about the horse's chances of winning and thus increase the odds of that horse. If we can key in on where these horses run well as they mature, we can capitalize on them before the betting public coalesces around these runners. So looking at Mitole's latest wins, 37 of 50 of the Mitole's top 50 earners have more than one win, which is 74%. The average distance of their most recent win is 6.7 furlongs versus 6.4 furlongs for their first win. So staying about the same distance, not really stretching out a whole lot. Most recent win was at sprinting. 70% was still a sprint. If we go back and look at the maiden win or their first ever win, that number was 81% of their maiden wins were sprints. So some of them are switching to routes, going longer. Most recent win routing, 30% versus 19% on their first ever win, their maiden win. So definitely some are stretching out. Mitole progeny seem better suited for sprints, but a good percentage are capable of stretching out. Most recent win surface, dirt, 86% in their most recent win versus 85% for their first ever win. So right about the same, sticking to dirt. Turf has dropped to 8% in their most recent win versus 13% for their first ever maiden win. And keep in mind that maiden races is easier to win your maiden race than when you're facing up against winners. So to win a maiden race on any given surface is one thing, but to win against winners, I think is a little bit more telling. So the fact that they're switching away from the turf a little bit leads me to believe that they probably prefer the dirt. Synthetic most recent wins, 5% versus 2% maiden win. So this just tells me that they're switching away from turf, sticking to dirt, but a little more on the synthetic. They're having some success on synthetic. Mitole progeny seem to excel on the dirt surface, as less are winning their most recent on the turf and synthetic, though turf races account for only 10 to 20% of all races. So again, much lower on synthetic, but higher in their most recent win than their maiden win. Mitole's progeny seem to be best suited at one turn or sprint races on dirt, and perhaps more favorable to synthetic surfaces than the grass. Taking a look at some dam sires with the Mitole on the sire side. So again, the father of the dam, as you can see in your racing form. Horses that won on debut where Mitole was the sire, and these were the dam sires that produced a runner that won first time out. So they produce some precocious runners. Bellamy Road, Tap It, Into Mischief. Yes, it's true. Read on down the list. But if you see a horse sired by Mitole whose dam sire is one of these horses, that might indicate to you that they're ready to win first time out. And when you see a racing form with a lot of first time starters, many people won't know what to make of it. They'll look at the workout tab, look at the trainer, look at the jockey, and kind of go off that. But going off pedigree takes a lot of work, and I know a lot of people don't want to do it. But if you can combine Mitole with one of these dam sires, they might be precocious and could win first time out, and you might catch them at a nice price. Now I want to take a look at my sheet and just sort of compare Mitole with some of the other stallions that I've covered so far. So here, if you look at the bottom of the Google Sheets I provided, you'll see some. This is where I've added up all the figures for all the stallions I've covered so far. So we have the stallions I've covered in the left-hand side. You can see Mitole right here. We'll highlight his row. So average starts to get their first win, Mitole is 3.1 on average, and you can see the other stallions that I've covered are producing a little more precocious horses. Mitole ranks 4th in terms of how many starts it takes to get their first win. We can also compare average starts for the first win for 2 years old. So again, he's ranked 3rd of 4. Average month, so in September, which is about on par. Bacoma seems to be a little producing the more precocious runners. Average starts to get their first win for 3 years old, 4.2 starts. Average month for those 3 years old, April, mid-April, which is a little bit later than some of these other runners. We have the percentage of their first win being on dirt, 85%. First win on turf, 13%. You can compare with the rest. He's right up there at the top of the pack. First win on synthetic, 2%, by far the lowest. Last win on dirt, 86%, about mid-pack. You can see the averages above 2 going across the top, so you can compare with the average as well as the other stallions. Last win on turf has the lowest, so maybe Mitoles just don't gravitate towards the turf. Last win on synthetic, one of 2 runners that actually has some wins on synthetic as their most recent start. Their first win sprinting versus their most recent win sprinting, so you can see the number change between all the runners. Here's Mitoles. First win routing, 19 to last win routing. How many are switching over to routes? First win distance on average, 6.4 furlongs. Last win distance on average, 6.7 furlongs. Debut winners, how many won first time out of those top 50? 26% compared to the rest. Total number of winners, so how many have at least one win in the top 50? 96%, so second best out of these 4. A little more consistent across the board. Multiple winners, how many have at least 2 wins? 74%, by far the highest of all of these stallions that I've covered so far. And I know 4 is a pretty small sample size, but I'm just going to keep compiling and we'll have better stats to go off as I keep doing more and more of these videos, learning more and more about some of these stallions. So just some final thoughts and a wrap up. 26% of Mitole's top 50 earners won on debut, which ranks 3rd of 4 covered so far of those stallions we're looking at. It takes an average of 3.1 starts for Mitole's top 50 to record their first win, which ranks the lowest, 4 of 4, which indicates that they might be slightly less precocious than some other top stallions, but again, the sample size is still low. Mitole sired horses seem to thrive on the dirt. 85% get their first win on dirt and 86% get their most recent win on dirt, so no change, just a slight tick up. Mitole sired horses appear best suited for one-turn or sprint races. Mitole, by my comparisons, appears to be slightly less precocious than some other top stallions, but looks to be a productive sire in sprint races. Unless a first-time starter has one of the dam sires shown before, maybe let one of his horses get a race or 2 under their belt to gain some experience and physical maturity, and look for them in sprint races on the dirt. So to wrap that up, just if it's a first-time starter by Mitole and it's not one of those dam sires that we showed earlier, then maybe give them a race or 2, but once they get a race or 2 or 3, they could be primed to get their first win, as they do average 4.1 starts to get their first win. That's it for this video on Mitole. I want to thank anybody for watching. Again, feedback is always appreciated, whether positive, negative. You have suggestions or recommendations, please let me hear them. I'd love to cover anything that is of interest to anyone watching. Please like, subscribe, and or share this video with friends. My target audience is for folks that are relatively new to the sport, so I'm trying to explain complex matters very simply, so not only do I teach myself more about the game and the pedigree side especially, but also to help explain it to anyone who's interested in the sport but is a little put off by all the information and data that's out there. So I hope that I'm explaining things very well. Let me know if I am or I am not, or where I can be more clear or succinct. If you do know anyone that is interested in horse racing or just wants to brush up on it or is just interested in general, please share my playlist, How to Read a Racing Form. That's a playlist where I just break down all the components of a racing form into really bite-sized pieces, explain it very simply in terms that everyone can understand. I've taken friends to the racetrack before and they're kind of put off by the racing form. It's a little daunting. It looks like a lot of information, but it's really not that complicated once you get into it. And of course, the racing form is there to help the player make an informed decision. So I think that if everyone can read it and collaborate with their friends based on what they're seeing, who they think has a good chance at winning the race and why, that collaboration is a great way to learn, but also to really narrow down and have some things pointed out to you that maybe you're missing. And it's just the best way to go about learning, and I break it down for everyone so hopefully you can understand. Once you get a firm grasp of the racing form, I have another playlist, Betting on Horse Racing. That's where I go over each type of bet that the racetrack typically offers you, what it is, how much it costs, how you can structure different tickets, how much your ticket will cost based on how you structure it, and also some things that I look for before I place any of those types of wagers. And I just break it all down so that it's easy to understand and not overly complicated, and you know how much your ticket is going to cost while you're making the ticket. Coming up next, I am going on vacation. I'll be in Mendocino for a week. While I'm there, I don't know if I will have any sort of studio to put out any more content, but I will be working on some things. I want to get back into the big race breakdowns, look at the big race of the week, talk about what I think of the race, how I think the race is going to go, and how I might play it. Seems like the people are watching those a little bit more, and while those are important, I feel like there's the market's a little bit flooded with those types of videos. A lot of people are giving their opinions, and I'm trying to again, target a new audience and just explain the process rather than tell you who I like. But I want to start getting back into doing some of those. It's really a time constraint issue with those to get them out quickly. I have a busy schedule as is, but I enjoy doing these videos, and the Pedigree just fits my schedule more. So if you'd like to see more big race breakdowns, let me know. I definitely want to do other Pedigree videos where I'm covering these stallions. There's a lot to learn, and I think it's a piece of the puzzle that a lot of people don't want to put the time into. So I really think that these will pay off most down the road, maybe not immediately, but as these horses get older and even some of their offspring are having their offspring hit the racetrack, I will be familiar with these horses. So I think the Pedigree playlist, while it's not my most popular videos, I think it might be the most important. So I hope people are enjoying those. If I don't put out any content, I will be working on one of these topics most likely, unless otherwise requested. I do want to polish these videos up. I know there's a lot of words on the screen and it's a lot of reading, but I think the information is valuable. So while I'm gone, I should be working on these videos and cleaning them up. If anyone's in Mendocino, you can probably find me at the Good Life Bakery. I'll be going there quite frequently, I'm sure. But again, thanks to everybody for watching. Be a little patient. I might be a week off till my next video, which maybe is par for the course, but I look forward to putting out the next one. Again, if anyone has any recommendations on what I should cover, please let me know. But again, the file is in the description. Thanks to anybody for watching, and I'll see you next time.